welcome. You're watching Market Meter on Money9. I'm Sakshi Batra, and on this show, we get you all the updates of the markets in the first half of trade, as well as we get you introduced to a fundamental expert who shares with us their view on the markets and the strategy that investors must follow after especially today's sharp fall that we have seen. Today, joining in is Mr. Vineet Bulinchkar, Head of Research at Ventura Securities. Thank you very much for joining it, Vineet. Good afternoon to you. First up, I actually would want to take your view on something completely different from today's market action, and that is on the glitch that we had seen on the NSE just 2 days back. Of course, it was a very unusual session for all of us, and there was a whole lot of anxiety building in the traders and the investors community as well. I wanted to understand from you, what are the big learnings one takes from such incidences as an investor, as a trader, and how should one be prepared for such things in future?
So, let's divide this, takeaways from this glitch into two parts. Absolutely, one as an investor and as a trader. So, for an investor, a glitch or any kind of a market meltdown is always an opportunity to add on to sectors that you believe are going to be very strong running, because these are events which do not affect the fundamentals of the stock in concern or the market as such. Second is, so when you have a little bit of spare cash on the side, whenever you have these rare opportunities, what you can do is you should actually be looking to go and buy your favorite stocks, because the valuations that you are getting are going to get sharply re-rated. So for an investor who is in a, when we are in such a market that we were in as of today, I believe that this should be the strategy going about. And for a trader, 3-4 things that come is that, you should never be leveraged, because, with such an incident where you have no control, you can actually get wiped out. So, you should always trade well within your means. And second thing is, if you are going to be an aggressive trader, you should always be having some kind of hedge stories.
Okay.
So either you be hedged on the downside, or you have a long short portfolio. So, which takes care of all your problems. So these are some of the biggest learnings that one can really take away from these kind of glitches that happen.
All right, point well taken. Now let's come to today's sharp fall that we have been witnessing. Both the indices are actually trading at the lowest point of their day, 4%, 3.5% kind of a loss for the Nifty and the Sensex. How are you seeing this kind of a fall? Is it only due to the global crash that we saw and the weak global cues that we had received from the US markets overnight? Or do you see this as a correction well overdue?
So it's a host of factors, where the markets, because of the global liquidity, had rallied so aggressively. And, in terms of valuations, we are a little ahead of the earnings. So having taken that into account, there was always the concern that a market meltdown would come. It would not be very aggressive. But what is happening in the US is that the pump priming, which has happened to, kind of nullify the impact of the COVID and the potential drawdowns from that, is that there is overwhelming liquidity in the markets, and you cannot just wish it away, and it is going to put out its head in some way or the other, and that is coming through the bond yields going up, inflation rallying very sharply. And if you see, the bond yield trends are at the previous lows of the decade. So we were much lower. Now we are hitting those bottoms out there, and we are going to come back up again. So just 2 years back, the US 10-year bond yields were 3+%. So, it's very quite probable that, we could see the bond yields go up from here.
Yeah.
And, people, so basically what has been happening, there is a rage in the US markets for, the Robinhood kind of investors.
Yeah.
And, they do not take into account the actual equity valuations and the considerations around the interest costs. So as the yields go up, what is going to happen is the investments which are there in the nouveau sectors, so the disruptions themes, the innovation theme, etc. What is happening? A lot of money has gone there because they're the new age technology stocks, and we have to understand that their cash flows are not immediate, but their cash flows are reasonably, out of the short term investing horizon. And when the bond yields go up, the valuation of the cash flows comes down significantly, impacting near term valuations very drastically.
Okay.
And then what you're going to have is the HFT kind of investors, the the bears coming in,
Yeah.
and this is going to create a vicious cycle, which is going to be very, very swift. So volatility is going to be the name of the game, and that is what you're seeing actually play out there. And
Okay.
when the US sneezes, we are catching a cold.
Absolutely. But do you see further correction from this level, or is it what we are seeing for now?
I think that this correction could continue. Secondly, we have to take into factor seasonal factors like the Indian markets. Typically Feb March is a point in time when we see some kind of selling coming.
Okay.
And then April is a very, very strong market. You can see these trends over the last few years. So I believe that going into March, it's going to be a lot of pain before the markets kind of find some bottom.
Sure.
And I think that you should be using this pain period to actually add on to the stocks, because India's growth story is unhampered.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, any particular sectors that you find have become more attractive in the kind of dip that we have seen today?
So, the banking stocks have obviously corrected rather sharply. One could look at stories out there, but as I said, there's still more pain. But having said that, we have to understand in COVID times, and when the strains are, where the virus is mutating and all, the COVID impact is going to last a little bit longer, and the global uncertainties are going to be there.
Okay.
So, you should be where the government is investing. So, where is the government investing? We are investing in the infrastructure space. Gas space is getting a very strong fillip from the government with the policy rollout and the strict clauses that are there for implementation.
Yeah.
And then the third phase, obviously, is the pharma story, which will again come into the limelight. So, infra, pharma, and domestic manufacturing are areas where I think this downtrend should be used to, really take your portfolio a slightly notch higher in these sectors.
Okay, got it. Let's move on to take your stock recommendations for investors in this kind of a market. Where do you see investors should really look forward to add on to their portfolio now?
So, at Ventura, we are more bottom-up kind of investors, and specifically in these three sectors that I've spoken to you about, I would like to talk about three ideas that I like. So, one is Kaplan Point. I believe is very reasonably poised, very reasonably valued,
Okay.
and if you see, the US is very short on injectables. And these guys have invested very heavily in that space. They've got 8 A&D approvals, 12 more are in the pipeline. So I think that this is one stock which one should be looking at investing in. And over the next 2 to 3 year horizon, we could possibly see the stock touch around $700.
True, true, true.
Uh,
Yeah. Move on to see the next stock of the day also that you have for us.
Yeah, so Everest Canto is a stock that I like. So the reasons being that the company was in a very delicate situation a few years back, but things have really turned around the corner and they're coming back pretty strongly. They're paring down their debt, and their debt should be inconsequential going into 21-22. We see very strong growth rate coming from the fact that the after COVID, the need for gas cascades for rolling out these CNG pumps from 2,500 now to about 10,000 in the next decade is a very, very compulsive idea. And he is Everest Canto is one of the best, is a leaders in this segment. And the next player is almost half his size.
Okay.
So I think that this stock should be doing very well. And the third theme that we like in the infrastructure space, okay, we like Sagar Cements. Okay, why we like Sagar Cement? Because they are the go-to players for the entire industry on strategy. Okay, so they are very well revered. Second is they have grown their capacities from being a fledgling player to us, mid-sized player, and they've got very strong growth trends in place. And we believe that the stock is rather undervalued at around current levels, and it could be a very, very strong core portfolio holding for the next decade.
Okay, thank you very much, Vineet, for sharing all these picks with us and also your market outlook with us on Money9. 3 stock picks have been given by Vineet today. Sagar Cements, Everest Canto Cylinder and Kaplan Point. All of them can be held for at least 1 year duration, and strong upside from the current levels of about 25-30% can actually be seen if you hold on to their portfolio, to your portfolio on these stocks for a long-term perspective as well. Thank you very much, Vineet. It was a pleasure speaking to you in today's trading session. Let's move on to see how the markets are really trading at this point in time. And now when you see the sell-off is kind of deepening at this point in time. 3.4% loss for the Sensex, 49,326. That's the level the Sensex is trading at right now. और अगर आप देखेंगे तो 500 अंकों की गिरावट निफ्टी 50 में भी देखने को मिल चुकी है और अब 14,590 के आसपास निफ्टी 50 ट्रेड कर रहा है। 1700 अंकों की गिरावट सेंसेक्स में, 500 अंकों की गिरावट हमें निफ्टी में देखने को मिल रही है और इससे भी ज़्यादा शार्प सेल ऑफ हमें निफ्टी बैंक में देखने को मिल रही है। आप ये याद रखिए कि पिछले 2 ट्रेडिंग सेशंस या 3 ट्रेडिंग सेशंस में निफ्टी बैंक ने जो भी गेन्स लिए थे 37,000 के ऊपर भी निफ्टी बैंक ट्रेड कर रहा था एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम विद इन दीज 3 सेशंस, लेकिन अब 35,000 का लेवल भी ब्रेक हो चुका है, यानी कि 2,000-2,500 के पॉइंट्स हम ऑलरेडी गिव अप कर चुके हैं पिछले 3 सेशंस में। आज ही अगर आप देखेंगे तो 1740 अंकों की गिरावट यहाँ पर है, करीब 5% तक का शार्प सेल ऑफ निफ्टी बैंक में देखने को मिल रहा है। तो सबसे ज्यादा पेन आज बैंकिंग फाइनेंशियल स्पेस में है। मिड कैप और स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में अगर आप देखेंगे तो 1.5% से 2.5% तक की वीकनेस यहां पर नजर आ रही है। तो सेल ऑफ जो है वो काफी ब्रॉड बेस्ड इस समय नजर आ रहे हैं। सेक्टर्स देखते हैं कहां पर सबसे ज्यादा पेन है। सभी सेक्टर्स इस समय लाल निशान में काम कर रहे हैं। सबसे ज्यादा वीकनेस ऑफ कोर्स आप देखेंगे तो पीएसयू बैंकिंग स्पेस में है, प्राइवेट बैंकिंग स्पेस में 5% तक की गिरावट है। तो इस फॉल में सबसे ज्यादा बड़ा हाथ प्राइवेट बैंकिंग स्पेस का है और साथ ही एक और इंडेक्स है फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज। इन दोनों में ही 5% तक की वीकनेस देखने को मिल रही है, फॉलोड बाय पीएसयू बैंकिंग इंडेक्स। निफ्टी ऑटो में भी 3% तक की गिरावट है और साथ ही साथ अगर आप देखेंगे आईटी स्टॉक्स वीक चल रहे हैं 2% तक के आसपास। मेटल्स में अब प्रॉफिट बुकिंग बहुत ज्यादा हावी हो रही है, 3% तक के आसपास की वीकनेस वहां। रियल्टी इंडेक्स वीक है, 2.5 से 3% तक की वीकनेस यहां पर भी देखने को मिल रही है। ओवरऑल पूरी ही स्पेस जो है सेक्टर्स की आज लाल निशान में है। तो जिस तरीके से एक्सपर्ट्स ने कहा कि जो वीकनेस है लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए आप इसमें क्वालिटी नेम्स को ढूंढें, अपने पोर्टफोलियो में शामिल कीजिए, क्योंकि अंडरलाइन ट्रेंड अभी भी इंडियन मार्केट्स का पॉजिटिव है और ये जो करेक्शन था ये वेल ओवरड्यू होता जा रहा है। डेफिनेटली हमको जो ट्रिगर मिला है ग्लोबल मार्केट से देखने को मिला है, लेकिन धीरे धीरे हो सकता है ये करेक्शन बीच में आपको और देखने को मिले, लेकिन इन टिप्स को यूज करना चाहिए अपने पोर्टफोलियो में ऐड ऑन करने के लिए। आगे बढ़ते हैं। आज के टॉप गेनर में सिर्फ एक ही नाम है सन फार्मा का, जहां पर 611 रुपए के आसपास ट्रेड हो रहा है, 0.3% तक का अपटिक है। लूजर्स के बारे में बात करें तो वही आपके सामने नाम शामिल हैं। आईसीआईसीआई बैंक, एक्सिस बैंक, कोटक महिंद्रा बैंक। बैंकिंग स्पेस से सबसे ज्यादा बड़ा नुकसान इन काउंटर्स में देखने को मिल रहा है, 5.5% तक के आसपास का। साथ ही जेएसडब्ल्यू स्टील में भी अगर आप देखेंगे तो अब मुनाफा वसूली है और एमएनएम में अगर आप देखेंगे तो यहाँ पर भी सबसे ज्यादा नेगेटिव कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑटो स्पेस में देखने को मिल रहा है। आगे बढ़े तो देखते हैं कि नई लिस्टिंग आज कैसे हुई है। तो रेलटेल का आज जो आईपीओ था आज लिस्ट हुआ। इनफैक्ट ये जो स्टॉक है इसने अपना स्टेलर डेब्यू माना है। अगर आप देखेंगे तो ग्रेविटी को डिफाई करते हुए 16% के प्रीमियम पर अपने इशू प्राइस के ये स्टॉक जो है लिस्ट होते हुए नजर आया है। 109 रुपए पर आज ये एनएससी पर लिस्ट हुआ था, जो कि 16% तक का प्रीमियम इसके इशू प्राइस 94 रुपीज के इशू प्राइस से ये लिस्ट होता हुआ नजर आया। तो मान के चलिए कि अगर आज का जो मोमेंटम है वो पॉजिटिव होता तो और ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग लिस्टिंग यहाँ पर देखने को मिल सकती थी, लेकिन तभी भी होल्ड ऑन कर रहा है। इसका मतलब काफ़ी ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग काफ़ी ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग जो रिस्पॉन्स है वो इन्वेस्टर्स की तरफ से इस काउंटर को डेफिनेटली देखने को मिल रहा है। चलिए इसी के साथ इस खास शो को यही समेटते हैं, लेकिन मार्केट्स में गिरावट के पीछे क्या कुछ फैक्टर्स हैं इसके बारे में लगातार कवरेज जारी रहेगी Money9 पर, तो बने रहिए हमारे साथ।